Are you interested in learning about investing but don't know where to start? Tired of working hard for your money but feeling like your money doesn't work hard for you? Well, welcome to the Apogee Wealth Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Nichols. Each week on this podcast, we break down the mindset, principles, and strategies that you can use to grow your wealth and live the life that you feel you were called to live. I hope you get a tremendous amount of benefit from this episode. Thanks for tuning in. Welcome back, everyone, to another week's episode of the Apogee Wealth Podcast. I'm your host, Jonathan Nichols, and today I'll be doing a solo episode on something that I think will be beneficial to many of the listeners on the show, particularly those who maybe are newer to real estate investing. And I'm going to share some truths behind the scary but nonetheless true fact that most people who want to go into real estate investing never succeed. And in fact, not only do most people who want to go into real estate investing never succeed, most people who want to go into real estate investing never get started. And there's a number of different reasons for this that are very interesting. You know, real estate investing has been known for years and years and years as one of the most powerful wealth building tools available to us. And yet it's surprising that so very few people actually take advantage of real estate investing and the benefits that it offers. However, having been in the business myself now for almost a decade and having coached a number of students, I've seen what the common pitfalls are that keep people from getting started and then being successful as an investor. And I'm going to kind of boil it down into 7 key points today that I think you'll find rather useful if you're struggling to get started as a new investor. However, one thing I want you to realize to simplify this right from the get-go, there's really 2 main reasons that people are not successful in real estate investing. 1, they don't know what to do. And 2, if they do know what to do, they don't believe that they can do it, right? And these are really 2 different problems to solve, right? Not knowing what to do is something that I can help you cure, right? I can show you, do this, do that, take this path, don't take this path. But not believing in yourself and not taking advantage of the information that you learn is something that only you can change. And so understand that with all the things I'm about to talk about over the next few minutes, pretty much all of them fall under one or both of these umbrellas. Not knowing what to do or not believing that you yourself can go do it. And so with that, we'll go ahead and get started. I have 7 things to walk you through. I think you'll find all of them useful, and definitely stay to the end because some of them at the end are extremely insightful as well. So first of all, and the one that people are most commonly familiar with, why people never get started in real estate investing, is analysis paralysis. Now, as a former engineer, I definitely understand the world of analysis paralysis and the problem that it presents. We want to go into things, and particularly if you're more technical, logically minded, we want to go into things, we want to do them right from the get-go. We don't want to make mistakes. We don't want to lose money. And so we get fixated on all these little details in the weeds that may or may not be relevant to the result of our investment outcome. And we get fixated on these things that are not able to take a step forward that is needed to get started. And so one thing that I want you to understand right from the get-go is that people who are successful in any realm of life, yes, they take time to get educated and learn. Absolutely. Yes, they take time to learn from other people who have already done what they want to do. Think coaches, mentors, education programs. But the number one way that people learn something when they're new to it is by just getting out there and doing it. Trial and error, making mistakes. And obviously, I'm not telling you just go buy a piece of real estate tomorrow and make a big mistake. But what I am saying is that you will never truly begin to learn all the intricacies of real estate investing until you jump into the deep end of the pool. And so as a former engineer, I saw analysis paralysis all the time in the industry that I worked in, right? Engineers would want every little detail right, don't want to make a mistake, and rightfully so, right? There's some pretty severe consequences in the world of aerospace engineering if you make a mistake, just like there can be pretty severe consequences in the world of real estate investing if you make a mistake. However, there are many times in life where the 95% correct answer today is more valuable than the 100% correct answer tomorrow. And that's something I used to tell a lot of the engineers on the team that I worked with is, is the decision that we're really trying to hone in on here truly a life or death type of thing where we need the 100% correct answer? Or is it one where we need to be mostly accurate, but 95% is good enough? We can make a decision, move on, and course correct as we go forward. Most of the decisions you make in real estate investing are going to fall in that 95% bucket, right? And so, things like putting out your first offer, going to tour a property, or underwriting a deal, there's no long-term big consequences behind those decisions. And so jumping in and getting in the game, taking the time to take action, that's what's going to help you move forward and learn more. And so analysis paralysis is definitely the number one thing that I see people get hung up on when they get started in real estate investing, and certainly something that you should be aware of. Of course, with most of these things I'm going to mention, there's also the converse side, which is people that they don't take the time to learn and they rush into things and make big mistakes. And we'll actually talk about that in one of the later things that we're going to discuss. So, number 2, mistake that people make when going into real estate: confusing education with action. So when we get started into something new, and particularly if you're someone like myself who you like to learn new things, it's exciting to see new challenges, opportunities, strategies that you can do, it's really easy to think that the learning is a step forward in progress. And the reason it's easy to fall in the trap is because in the beginning phases of learning, it is, right? When you know nothing about a topic like real estate investing, taking the time to learn, to read books, watch YouTube videos, etc., those are legitimate steps forward. But what you have to understand is that when it comes to education, the ROI that you get for the time invested begins to give very diminishing returns over time. Like eventually, you have enough information to move forward, and you're just stuck in the education mode because you're afraid to make a decision, which this can tie back to analysis paralysis, but it can also just tie back into how we're wired as humans, right? We like to get our check boxes that we've done whatever task it is we feel we need to do. We like to feel like we're progressing forward and we're not just stuck in a zone where, we don't feel like we're progressing forward. And so many people, they get comfortable with the idea of learning, right? Like I listened to a podcast today. I listened to, Apogee Wealth podcast. I, read a book for 15 minutes. And like I said, that's all great in the beginning. The problem becomes when we feel like we're accomplishing by doing these things, and that's prohibiting us from actually going and taking action. So in a real sense, it's almost another form of analysis paralysis, but I think the root behind what causes it is different, right? Analysis paralysis is more, I'm legit concerned I'm going to make a wrong decision, whereas confusing education with action is more like, I feel like I'm making progress and that makes me feel good, instead of actually going out and doing the boring stuff that doesn't seem as fun or interesting and getting in the weeds and wrestling with those hard decisions, right? So, confusing education with action. Reason number 3 why many people do not succeed in real estate investing: not knowing what to do. And this one might seem kind of contrived or not as interesting as the first two. However, I would actually say it's probably the reason that the large portion of the population never has an interest in real estate investing, because they simply don't know anything about it, right? Everything they know about real estate is either from what their, uncle who knows nothing has told them, or it's from maybe their personal experience buying a house, which could be positive, negative, or neutral. And so not knowing what to do is actually the easiest to solve out of all the 7 things that I'm going to mention, because in today's world, there is so much education and opportunity to learn available to us. And so if you're someone who you're like, hey, I've heard real estate investing's good, or for that matter, any type of investing, stock market investing, whatever it is that you have an interest in, just know that there's no excuse to not learn what you need to learn in today's environment. And there's several ways to go out and find blueprints and learn what it is you need to. I personally think the best way to get started is by reading good books, listening to good podcasts, and watching YouTube videos that are in the genre of what it is that you want to learn about. Those are all either free or relatively free resources that can have an incredible amount of information packed within them so that you can already get 20-30% down the road to meeting your goal just by doing those things. I also often talk to people who are wanting to go in real estate investing and they're really trying to decide what they want to niche down into. So think, fixing and flipping houses versus multifamily versus short-term rentals. There's all kinds of different investment strategies in real estate. And sometimes people will go down a rabbit trail chasing multiple at a time as opposed to focusing on one. And so I tell new investors, take the time to read some books about the strategy that you think you're interested in, and then see if the feedback you get from that education, what you're learning about it, is what you expect and continues to, make you excited or interested in pursuing that as your niche in real estate, right? So this one, not knowing what to do, easiest thing to cure. The first step in it is going to be, education that's either free or relatively free. The second thing that I highly recommend as an investor, and obviously depending which direction you're going, is taking the time to learn from a mentor or someone who's done what you want to do, right? And so I've always told students that I've mentored in multifamily that my job as a mentor in this business is to take the textbook information that you've learned, right? The theoretical textbook, it should work like this type of information, and help you translate that to the real world, rubber meets the road. How do we really do investing information? And that's a really big gap, and quite frankly, one where a lot of people get confused. And so there's many people that, because the information I mentioned is free, they'll go out and learn these things, but they get stuck in between that textbook world of like, well, the formula should work like this and the deal should look like this. And I've already looked at 25 deals and none of them worked. What am I doing wrong? A mentor or a coach can help you with that because they have the blueprint of what you need to do to move forward and be successful as an investor. Now, I always recommend to people that you start out with the education of the coursework or the books or the podcast, because you need to build your acumen to a point where you know the right questions to ask to a mentor or a coach that will actually help you progress, as opposed to just picking their brain or, not really knowing what's going on. So I think that it's important that you complete the steps in this order, but these are the steps that you should complete, right? I hope you're enjoying the content of this episode. I want to take a quick 15-second break to thank our sponsor for this episode, which is Apogee Capital. Now, Apogee Capital is our private equity firm that we allow investors to participate in large-scale multifamily investment opportunities through. If you're interested in being a passive investor and would like to learn more, you can find information on our website, www.apogee.com. Link is in the show notes. Now, thanks and enjoy the rest of the episode. Reason number 4, why most people never get started in real estate investing, and that is waiting for the perfect deal. And this could also, once again, be construed as analysis paralysis, but I would say there's a little bit of a nuance to it, and that is just the recognition that there's actually no such thing as a perfect deal. I have never looked at a deal in my real estate career that had no obstacles, challenges, or something behind it that made it seem less than 100% perfect. Like, we've never had an apartment complex that we underwrote and everything was just absolutely perfect and there were no challenges. But rather, it's the ability to identify what challenges are between you and a perfect investment, understand what the risks are behind those challenges, and how you can mitigate them as an investor. And that's really where the secret sauce is in finding a deal. Knowing what is actually a deal killer versus what is simply an obstacle that you need to work to overcome as an investor. Once again, this can be overcome not just through education, but through mentorship or having someone help you move from that textbook world to the rubber meets the road world. Reason number 5 why most people never get started in real estate investing is thinking that you need to be rich to start. This was the one that I actually think held me back for the longest time. I thought that if I didn't have, $100,000 or $250,000 or $500,000 to invest in real estate, that I didn't really have an opportunity to get started as an investor. And this is simply not true. And it's not true for a number of different reasons. And I'll give you just a couple of those right now. First of all, in real estate investing, and particularly in single family investing, there are a number of, I hesitate to say no money down type of investment opportunities, but there can be very low money down investment opportunities. So the first thing that I always tell people that they should do when getting started in real estate investing is go do what's called a house hack, right? Which is simply going out, buying a property, maybe a duplex, a quadplex that you can move to. You can put a personal mortgage on, which one means that you have a very low down payment, think 5% down payment. And two, you have the lowest interest rate available to you on the market, which is a personal residence mortgage. And so you combine these two things and you suddenly have the recipe for a very powerful return as a real estate investment. So think about it like this. If I go buy a property that's $400,000, right? If I go put 25% down, which would be a normal down payment on an investment loan, that's $100,000 plus obviously closing costs, repairs, etc. If I want to double my money, that property has to go up in value from $400,000 to $500,000 plus the closing costs and all that in order for me to double my investment. Not only that, I'm going to be paying a higher interest rate because it's a investment property as opposed to a personal residence, and I lose the opportunity cost of things I could have done with that $100,000 across other deals. Contrast that to going in with a house hack on the same property. I put 5% down, so $20,000 instead of $100,000, right? Now I only need the property to go up in value from $400,000 to $420,000 to double my money. And this is the reason why it's one of the most powerful strategies, right? Much lower money required to get started, better interest rate, easier to get a good return on your investment. And so that's one strategy. Another strategy that people will often use that's specific more to the single family world is what's called the BRRRR method, which is essentially going in, we've talked about it before, but finding a property that would normally be like a fix and flip. So it needs improvements, it needs renovation. But then after doing those renovations, refinancing that property and holding it as an investment long term. And the reason this can be a pretty low money down option is because you can often use different financing tools like hard money loans that require very minimal down payment to get started. And basically, they're lending to you on the merits of the deal that you find as opposed to your balance sheet necessarily. And so, let's say you're going to renovate a $200,000 house. What we would have like an ARV after you've repaired it, it's going to be worth $200,000. You might be able to find that deal for $125,000, and then you're going to put $25,000 into it. Well, the lender that I mentioned, they may be willing to give you up to 75% LTV, which would be $150,000 for the purchase and the repair, and you basically just bring the closing cost to the title company in order to purchase the property, then do your renovation, refinance all the capital out for that hard money loan, and move forward. Now, there's more risk with this type of business plan versus the house hack that I mentioned, but it's just to say that a lack of money is simply not a good reason to not get started in real estate investing. It just means that the strategy you initially pursue might need to be a little bit different. Now, I want to talk about another way that people often get started in real estate investing with not as much money, and that is by partnering and or using other people's money. So same scenarios. I want to go buy an investment property and I have a friend named Jonathan, right? Who he has money to invest in real estate and wants to be a partner on deals, but he doesn't want to do all the sweat equity, right? He doesn't want to drive around and look at properties or manage a renovation, but he does want to be an investor. Well, I can go partner with Jonathan in order to have the money to go buy the deal that I want to. And together we both get a return on our investment and we contribute the things that we're able to contribute. Now, obviously, in order to do this, you have to be able to convince Jonathan that you are competent enough to go out, buy a property, renovate the property, execute the business plan, and give him the return that he's hoping to see. And so that's the challenge or the obstacle that you have to overcome if you want to go that route. But it's a very viable route that many new investors go down in order to get started, and definitely something that you should think about. And then kind of along the same swim lane there is just generally using other people's money, which is actually what we do in Apogee Capital in the real estate syndication business, right? We have essentially a private equity fund to go out and buy very large commercial multifamily properties that we are not able to go buy just on our own, at least not multiple of them. And in return, we're able to offer investors a passive investment opportunity to join our deals, be professionally acquired, run, and managed by ourselves and our property management partners in order to successfully have a real estate investment. And so that's the secret to doing a lot of the large scale commercial projects that we actually do. And so many people think I can't get started in real estate investing because I don't have the money. Simply not true. And I'll highlight again, at the beginning of the podcast, I mentioned 2 reasons why people don't get started. The first one is not knowing what their options are. Well, when it comes to the money, you now know what some of your options are because I've just told you. So the second obstacle is, do you believe that you can go out and do that? And that's the question that you have to answer now. And if you don't believe that you can, what are the reasons, what are the limiting beliefs behind why you don't think that you can go out and be successful at raising money or as an investor? It's really important to sit down, dissect those out, understand where they're coming from, and see what you need to do in order to overcome those limiting beliefs. Now, reason number 6 why most people never get started as an investor, and that is trying to do everything alone. This was a mistake that I made in investing, and part of the reason I made the mistake is because I actually did do a lot of it alone. And by alone, I mean myself and Paula together did a lot of it alone. We would go out and find a property on our own. Paula had her real estate license, and early on, we would find, single family properties that we could buy with our own money. We could go in and paint or do whatever on our own, fix them up, rent them out, be the property manager, and we tried to do everything. And one, it prevented us from being able to focus on the tasks that we were best at, which for me was finding deals, developing business plans, and for Paula, it was managing high-level operations on the business. Because instead we were doing things like answering maintenance calls or screening tenants or painting apartments, which is simply a waste of time as an investor. You need to realize that to be successful, not just in this business, but any business, you need other people on your team who are the best at what they do. So in real estate investing, this could look like a lot of different things. It could be a real estate agent to help you find really good deals in single family. It could be brokers if you're on the commercial multifamily side to help you find good deals. It could be lenders. It could be general contractors to do renovations. It could be property managers. There's so many different team members that can help you on your journey, no matter what type of niche of real estate investing you're going into. The question is, do you know who those team members are, like what the titles are, and do you have a person in each of those seats on the bus to help you on your team? And if you don't, that's fine. You just need to start working on building those relationships out so that when you find a deal, you have the right people to be able to execute on it. Now, reason number 7 why most people never get started, or in this case, I would say more likely never succeed at real estate investing, and that is ego. Ego is one of the worst things going into a world of investing. And I would say the big reason for that is that you get over your skis thinking that you know more or that you're capable of doing more than what you're really able to do. And this is really the opposite end of the spectrum of many of the people that are in like analysis paralysis. And I would actually say I see it less than the bucket of people who are in the analysis paralysis arena. The problem with this is that people will go out and not take the time to learn, not take the time to build their team, not take the time to get wisdom or insight from people that have done what they've done before. and they go out and get in a train wreck on a real estate deal because they didn't properly learn how the business works, how to underwrite, how to manage, etc. And they buy something that's a bad deal. And this is something that unfortunately I have also seen many times over. People who they come into business, they want to present themselves as being better than what they are. And as a result, they're not open to the feedback that could help them to be successful. And so if you are listening to this podcast today, and hopefully you found some kind of value across these 7 things, I truly believe if you can write these down, identify which ones pertain to you, and figure out how you're going to overcome them, you will be successful as a real estate investor. Also keep in the back of your mind that within these 7 categories, these 7 reasons that people are not successful, we had those 2 umbrellas of not having the information or not having the belief to act on the information. And those are important to think through as well as you list out each of these 7 and identify which ones pertain to you. And so if you're here today and you're interested in learning more about real estate investing, first of all, you're in the right place listening to this podcast. We also have a number of resources on our website, apogeecapital.com. Those are mostly specific to passive investors in multifamily real estate. But if you're interested in being an active investor in multifamily real estate, we also have an advisory program where we help new investors to get started in this business. Now, it's not easy. It's not guaranteed. It's a lot of work and there is risk involved. But if you're someone who's really committed to real estate investing, there's a tremendous opportunity right now in the multifamily market. We're seeing properties at pricing that you probably would have been able to buy deals at 8 to 10 years ago today, after falling off the valuation highs of 2021 and 22. And quite frankly, I can't think of a better time to be getting started in this business than right now. And so if it's something that you've thought about and you want to learn more about our advisory program, certainly reach out to us. We'd definitely be happy to have a conversation with you. I hope these 7 things have been useful to you, that you've learned something from it. Definitely leave us a review, subscribe to the podcast, and we'll see you back next week on the Apogee Wealth Podcast. Thanks for joining. Thanks for tuning into the Apogee Wealth Podcast. I certainly hope you found something valuable in this episode that you can take with you and apply to your own investing journey. If you found the show valuable, you can subscribe so you don't miss further episodes. And if you'd like to learn more about ourselves or our company, you can visit our website, www.apogeemfc.com. We have a ton of educational resources that I'm sure you'll find quite valuable. Until next time, happy investing.